You ever walk away from a conversation and think, man, I should have said that? Yeah, we've all been there. Replaying moments in our head, realizing too late what we should have done or said. But here's the truth. Being smart isn't about knowing everything, it's about knowing how to read the room, how to control yourself when everyone else loses control, and how to turn pressure into power. Because when you understand people, their motives, their silence, their patterns, you stop reacting and start directing. So today, I'm going to show you how to outsmart anyone, not with ego, not with manipulation, but with 5 rules that put you in total dominance, without ever raising your voice. Let me tell you something that'll change the way you move through any situation, control your emotions, and you control everything. That's your real superpower. Because the truth is, most people don't lose because they're less intelligent. They lose because they get emotional. They let anger, pride, or fear make decisions their logic should have made. And the second you let your emotions take the lead, you've already given someone else control over you. See, dominance isn't loud. It's quiet. It's calm. It's being able to look chaos in the face and say, I'm not reacting to that. Think about the last time someone pushed your buttons. Maybe it was an argument, a workplace confrontation, or even someone trying to embarrass you in front of others. The moment you reacted, they won. Because now you're playing their game. But when you stay calm, when you keep your tone steady, when you pause before responding, they start second guessing themselves. You take the power right back without ever having to raise your voice. That's how emotional control creates psychological dominance. It disarms people. They expect resistance, not composure. And here's the part that most people miss. Controlling your emotions isn't about suppressing them. It's about understanding them. It's being aware enough to say, okay, I'm angry right now, but I'm not going to act angry. That's maturity. That's control. You're not pretending the feeling doesn't exist. You're just choosing not to let it steer the conversation. When you respond with calm confidence, it unsettles people who rely on emotional manipulation. They can't read you, and when they can't read you, they can't control you. In a room full of noise, the calm person stands out. The one who isn't rattled by tension becomes the center of gravity. You ever notice how people naturally turn to the calm one when things go wrong? That's because composure signals strength. It communicates, I've got this, without you ever saying a word. And once people sense that kind of control, they start following your lead without realizing it. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be cold or detached. It means you lead with intention, not reaction. Someone insults you, you don't bite. Someone challenges you, you don't rush to defend. You listen. You analyze. You give that little half smile that says, you're not getting to me. Because when you can stay centered while everyone else is spinning, you become the calm in their storm. And that's influence. The real secret to outsmarting anyone isn't in what you say. It's in how little they can provoke you. Emotional control makes you unpredictable. You don't take the bait. You don't feed their drama. You just observe, decide, and respond when you choose to. That unpredictability keeps people off balance. They can't manipulate what they can't predict. Let's be honest. Life is full of tests designed to break your composure. Someone cuts you off, lies to your face, questions your integrity. Your first instinct is to react. But those are the moments where power is either lost or gained. When you can breathe through the impulse, when you can slow your response down just long enough to choose clarity over chaos, you win every time. Because dominance isn't found in control over others, it's found in control over yourself. You want to outsmart anyone. Start with mastering your emotions. That's the foundation every great strategist, leader, and negotiator builds on. Because when you can't be provoked, you can't be played. And when you can't be played, you've already won. Most people think being the smartest person in the room means being the one doing all the talking. But that's the biggest mistake you can make if you want real influence. The person who speaks the most isn't always the most powerful. it's usually the one who listens the best. Because when you observe more than you speak, you gather information. You collect patterns, tone shifts, body language, inconsistencies. You start seeing what other people miss because they're too busy trying to be heard instead of trying to understand. The truth is, people reveal everything if you know what to pay attention to. They tell you their fears through what they avoid, their desires through what they emphasize, their insecurities through what they defend, and they do it without even realizing it. But you only catch those details when you're not rushing to respond. When you slow down, when you lean in and actually listen, you begin to read between the lines, and that's where the real truth lies. It's not about sitting there silently waiting for your turn to talk. It's about being present. You're listening not just to their words, but to how they say them. Does their tone change when you mention certain topics? Do they avoid eye contact when you bring up specific people? Do they explain something that didn't need defending? Those are signs, cues that reveal what's really going on underneath the surface. The person who observes sees the whole picture, while everyone else only reacts to the obvious. When you're the observer, you become a strategist. You know what drives people before they even realize it themselves. You understand what motivates them, what frustrates them, what makes them feel seen. That awareness gives you leverage, not in a manipulative way, but in a way that lets you navigate situations with precision. You're not thrown off by emotion or ego because you already understand what's shaping the conversation. And here's the beautiful part: when you listen deeply, people trust you faster. They feel heard, and that makes them drop their guard. They start talking more, revealing more, giving you exactly the information you need. You don't even have to push. They hand it to you willingly, because everyone's craving to be understood. Most people listen to reply, very few listen to understand. Be that person, and you'll see doors open that brute force could never touch. Observation also protects you. When you know what's being said between the lines, you stop getting blindsided. You start recognizing patterns in behavior. Someone who flatters too much, someone who deflects blame, someone who never takes accountability. Those are red flags you catch when you're not distracted by their words. The loudest person in the room is often covering the most insecurity. The quietest one is usually collecting the most insight. Be the quiet one. And when you finally do speak, your words carry more weight. Because silence builds anticipation. People listen differently when they've seen that you don't waste words. You've studied, analyzed, and chosen your moment carefully. And that's when your voice has maximum impact. You're not trying to win attention. You already have it because your presence commands it. Outsmarting anyone starts with patience. It's the discipline of holding back, of letting people show you who they are before you show them who you are. Because the more they reveal, the easier it becomes to move with intent, not reaction. You can't control a game you don't understand, and you can't understand what you refuse to observe. So stop rushing to be heard. Let others fill the silence. Watch, listen, and learn. Because the person who pays attention holds the power, and in every room, power always belongs to the one who needs to speak the least. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools of power. People think dominance means talking more, arguing harder, being the loudest voice in the room. But real dominance, it lives in silence. Because silence forces people to fill the space. And when they do, they expose more than they intend to. You see, most people are uncomfortable with quiet. They need noise to feel safe. They need constant talking to feel in control. But the person who's comfortable with silence, that person's dangerous. Because they don't rush to explain, they don't rush to defend, and they don't rush to prove a point. They let the silence do the work. When you stay quiet in key moments, people start projecting their own thoughts into the space. They reveal their intentions, their insecurities, their guilt. They start telling on themselves. You ever seen someone get nervous when you just pause and look at them after they've said something questionable? That discomfort makes them talk more. They'll try to justify, clarify, backtrack, and the more they talk, the more truth slips out. That's not manipulation. That's patience. You're not forcing anything. You're just giving them room to show you who they really are. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean you're ignoring the moment. It means you're in control of it. You're creating a space where the other person has to reveal what's behind their words. And when you can sit comfortably in that space, when you can resist the urge to fill every gap, you become unreadable. That's a rare kind of power. People don't know what you're thinking, so they start overthinking. They start wondering if they said too much, if they messed up, if you caught something they didn't mean to say. That's psychological control, and you achieved it by saying nothing. The best negotiators, leaders, and communicators understand the power of the pause. That small moment of silence after someone finishes talking, that's where all the leverage hides. Because when you don't respond right away, it makes people uneasy. They start trying to read your silence, and in doing so, they give away more information. It's almost like your quiet becomes a mirror reflecting their truth back at them. You just have to be patient enough to wait for it. Now, silence isn't just about making others speak. It's also about protecting your own power. Every time you rush to explain yourself, you give away control. You're trying to manage how they perceive you instead of letting your presence do it naturally. Sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. You're not ignoring, you're observing. You're watching how they handle not getting an instant reaction, because how people behave in silence says more about them than any words ever could. And here's the thing, silence commands attention. When you stop talking mid-conversation and just pause, everyone feels it. They lean in, they wait. That's influence. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't dominate through volume. You dominated through presence. You made people listen without demanding it. There's a reason silence makes people uncomfortable. It exposes truth. Words can disguise, distract, or decorate, but silence strips all of that away. It's raw. It's honest. It's powerful. You don't need to interrupt, over-explain, or force understanding. You just need to hold your silence long enough for the truth to surface. So the next time you're in a room full of noise, remember this silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. Let others talk themselves into corners while you sit steady, composed, and unreadable, because the one who masters silence never has to shout to be heard. They already own the room without saying a word. You ever notice how some people can walk into a room and instantly make others feel at ease? They don't force connection, they don't overcompensate, they just click with people. That's not luck, that's psychology. They've learned how to mirror, not mimic. And that's one of the most subtle, yet powerful ways to outsmart anyone. By making them feel understood. See, people are naturally drawn to what feels familiar. When someone mirrors your tone, your rhythm, even your energy, it tells your brain, this person gets me. That's why conversations with certain people feel so effortless. You're not fighting to be understood, they match your vibe. But the key difference is this: mirroring isn't about imitation. It's not copying someone's every move. It's about alignment. It's about being tuned in enough to speak their emotional language. When you're talking to someone who's calm and measured, and you match that pace, they trust you. When they're excited or expressive, and you meet that energy without exaggerating it, they feel connected. It's a psychological bridge. You're telling them, without words, I'm in sync with you. That's what creates instant rapport, and rapport is influence. People rarely resist those who make them feel seen. Now, let me be clear, this isn't manipulation. This is awareness. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're meeting people where they are. You're adapting to their wavelength so that communication flows instead of collides. That's what emotionally intelligent dominance looks like. The ability to adjust your presence without losing your authenticity. You can feel this dynamic in any conversation. You've probably experienced talking to someone who was too aggressive or too detached. It throws the energy off. You pull back. you disconnect. But when someone matches your rhythm, you lean in, you open up. And that's the power of mirroring done right. It opens people up while keeping you in control. You want to test this? Try it in your next conversation. Match someone's tone, not perfectly, just subtly. If they speak softly, lower your volume. If they're animated, let your expressions rise a bit. Watch how fast their guard drops. It's almost instant. They start mirroring you back, and now you're leading the emotional rhythm. That's how influence begins. Not through dominance, but through resonance. It also works beyond words. Your body language, your timing, even the pace at which you breathe, all of it sends signals. If someone leans in and you lean in slightly after, it communicates interest. If they slow their speaking pace and you match that calm energy, it communicates understanding. You're not copying, you're harmonizing. And harmony always beats force. People remember how you make them feel. You can outsmart someone intellectually for a moment, but emotional connection, that's lasting control. When someone feels safe around you, when they feel heard and validated, they stop fighting you. They start following your lead without even realizing it. You've gained influence not through argument, but through alignment. And that's the thing. True dominance isn't about overpowering someone. It's about guiding them. It's about creating a space where they willingly align with your direction because it feels right. That's how the best communicators move. They don't demand respect. They earn it through understanding. They mirror emotion, tone, and energy until connection becomes effortless and control becomes natural. So when you walk into a room, don't rush to make people see your power. Make them feel your presence. Mirror with awareness, connect with intention, and let rapport do the heavy lifting. Because once someone feels you understand them, you don't need to outtalk them. You've already outsmarted them. Most people lose power not because they're wrong, but because they argue inside someone else's reality. The moment you start defending yourself, you've already accepted the other person's frame, their version of the story, and once you're trapped inside their frame, you're playing by their rules. The real power move isn't to argue harder, it's to redefine the frame entirely. You shift the meaning, redirect the focus, and suddenly, you're not defending, you're leading. Think about it like this: every argument has a frame, an invisible boundary that defines what's being discussed. When someone says, "You're always late," and you reply, "No, I'm not," you've already stepped into their frame. The discussion is now about whether you're reliable. But if instead you say, "I value being on time, and I'm working on managing my schedule better," you just reframed it. You removed the attack, redirected the tone, and kept control of the energy. That's not evasion. That's mastery. Controlling the frame is about staying grounded in your perspective, no matter how hard someone tries to pull you into theirs. It's about deciding what the conversation means before anyone else gets to define it for you. The one who defines meaning always controls the direction. Because once people start responding to your version of reality, you don't have to fight for dominance. It's already built into the conversation. You ever notice how certain people can make even criticism sound like an opportunity? That's because they never let negativity set the frame. If someone says, "You can't do that," they don't argue back, they simply shift the focus. Maybe not yet, but here's what I'm working toward. They don't accept limits, they redefine them. That's psychological agility, being able to turn every attack into a pivot. When you control the frame, you control how energy moves. Now, the key here isn't to force your frame onto others. It's to calmly, subtly invite them into it. You do it with confidence, tone, and certainty. People naturally follow the person who sounds like they know where the conversation is going. That's why staying composed is so important. Emotion clouds logic, and logic defines frames. When you stay calm, you're able to redirect tension instead of absorbing it. You turn confrontation into curiosity. Instead of reacting, you respond with intention, and that's how influence grows without resistance. Let's say someone tries to provoke you with arrogance. They want to make you defensive, pull you into a fight. Don't take the bait, smile. Pause. Then change the direction. That's one way to look at it. Here's another. That single phrase takes you out of their emotional trap and puts you right back in control. You didn't challenge their ego, you simply changed the arena. Now, they're playing in your space. This works in every setting, relationships, business, even daily conversations. The moment someone tries to define you, your worth, or your position, remember you don't owe anyone a defense. You owe yourself clarity. Defending yourself keeps you small, defining yourself keeps you powerful. Because when you define the frame, you choose what matters and what doesn't. You decide what gets your attention, and attention is power. So next time someone comes at you trying to box you in, don't fight inside their lines. Redraw them. Stay calm. Reframe. Speak from composure, not emotion. Because once you control the frame, you control the focus. And when you control the focus, you control the outcome. Being smart in the moment is one thing, but staying 3 steps ahead, that's where true dominance lies. The people who seem unshackable, the ones who always seem to know what's coming before it happens, they're not lucky. They're observant. They've trained themselves to study patterns instead of reacting to moments. Because when you understand how people move, you can predict how they'll respond. And when you can predict, you don't have to play catch up. You're already ahead of the game. Most people live reactively. They wait for something to happen, then they decide what to do. But by the time they respond, the opportunity's already passed. The people who win, in business, relationships, or conflict, are the ones who've already anticipated the next move. They don't just listen to words, they study behavior. They notice consistencies, how someone avoids certain topics, how they change their tone when they're cornered, how they deflect when they feel threatened. Every pattern tells a story, and once you start connecting those dots, people become a lot easier to read. You start realizing that human behavior isn't random, it's repetitive. People repeat emotional habits. They repeat reactions, excuses, defense mechanisms. And when you've seen it enough times, you start to know exactly what's coming next. That's not arrogance, that's awareness. You're not guessing, you're reading. And that kind of foresight gives you quiet control, because while everyone else is reacting to what's happening right now, you're already preparing for what's about to happen next. It's like playing chess instead of checkers. Checkers is all reaction, move, counter-move, short-term wins. But chess requires vision. You're thinking 10 moves ahead, not just one. That's how people who seem unbothered operate. It's not that they don't feel pressure. They just saw it coming. They've already run the scenario in their mind, already decided how they'll respond, already accepted the outcome. So when tension shows up, they're not flustered. They're ready. And here's the secret. Staying 3 steps ahead doesn't mean you have to control everything. It means you understand enough that very little surprises you. When you expect certain behavior, you don't take it personally. You don't get thrown off balance. Someone trying to manipulate you. You saw it coming. Someone trying to guilt trip you. You already know that's their pattern. You don't need to react. You just adjust. That's what makes your presence so steady. You've replaced surprise with strategy. The key to this level of awareness is curiosity. You study people not to judge them, but to understand them. You watch, you listen, you notice how they handle pressure, what they say when they're nervous, how they behave when they think no one's watching. Every little detail adds up. And when you combine all those observations, you can almost predict the rhythm of their next move. It's not psychic, it's pattern recognition. This kind of foresight also keeps your emotions in check, because when you already know what to expect, you don't waste energy reacting to it. You stay focused. You stay grounded. You stop asking, why are they like this? And start saying, of course they did that. That's who they are. That's when power becomes calm. You're no longer trying to change people. You're simply navigating them with precision. The smartest person in the room isn't the one who talks the most or reacts the fastest. It's the one who already saw the next 3 moves before anyone else did. So take a step back, study patterns, learn the rhythm. Because when you can see what's coming before it arrives, you don't need to fight for control. You already have it.